Okay, so I want to follow up with you because I don't know what this is all about, but when I had ChatGPT 4.0, my new best friend, it said the girls on offense cannot be within the 8 meters for more than 3 seconds. That really snafu'd when I was trying to create offense and work with people, trying to understand it more and do things. But then I spoke to Gary, who coached girls, came from the boys' world, entered the girls' world, has been there for years, and
Mhm.
he was like, "That's not true." So I'm
Right.
following up with you, like, why did ChatGPT tell me that? Is ChatGPT totally wrong, or is it different ages? It's true and not, or like what? Where's the
No, ChatGPT is wrong.
okay?
And
Okay, so let's
that's a
start
lot
there.
of
It's just wrong. Okay.
I work for a global company and we have our own internal version of a chat of an AI chat. And they actually have advised us not to put, for that reason, Chat GPT on our work computers or work phones because oftentimes the information is inaccurate and also it can read our stuff. So I know that that was like a little side note, but Chat GPT is often inaccurate.
Right, and that's a whole nother conversation. We could talk
Correct.
about business stuff, our own personal world. Well, ChatGPT is
Correct.
great if you have some base knowledge, but if you're going from
Correct.
nothing, it's like enough
Yep,
knowledge where
always do
you can,
your it's kinda like Wikipedia, like, I think Wikipedia is a good base, but, like, follow up with the sources and do your own research, so
right?
same
Like
thing
I could,
when exploring girls
for
lacrosse.
yeah. So just not to go on this tangent too much, you could create drills for girls and boys lacrosse with ChatGPT, but you need some base knowledge. You can modify it, look like, it's not exactly right. It's a great way to kind of generate ideas and kind of create a structure. But at the end of the day, as you said, you need enough knowledge where you could look at it and modify it. People often ask, did you create a trio with ChatGPT? I'm like, yeah, no.
Right.
Like I do, but I have enough knowledge where I could use it and then look at it, be like, yeah, no, yes, and kind of modify it.
Correct.
And then I
Yep.
use it to kind of clean up my grammar and spelling and structure. But the
Right.
core idea, as you said, has to come from ourselves. So all you new coaches out there, unfortunately, maybe one day it's not there yet. You
Right.
know, so so with that being said, this was a great example of that where ChatGPT told me no, you can't have two girls in there, which threw me off in a big way. You know, because I'm sitting here trying to do this. I'm like, well, how do they run a motion offense? Because what came up was I was thinking in terms of this. Let me show you. You could see my board, I assume.
I can, yep.
So I was thinking in terms of um, two triangles. Okay, one, two,
Yep.
three, four, five, six. I'm missing a player. Um, and we'll call that number six. So obviously, I'm still in the phase. I'll get there one day, but I'm still at the point where I look at boys lacrosse and I try and plump it into girls lacrosse just because I want somebody like me or anybody not to start from scratch. You want to be able to use all the knowledge you learned and gained and try to apply it and not just disregard years of experience, whether it comes from basketball or boys lacrosse or whatever. So when I see this, I was thinking the triangle motion. So I
Mhm.
saw a YouTube video about the triangle motion, and this guy explaining it. Unfortunately, a lot of these videos they don't explain it well. You just get more confused. Because for me, triangle motion, okay, when I see this, I see two triangles. You know,
Yep.
obviously I see one, that goes here.
Right.
Well, you see where I'm going with that. I don't need to
Yep.
do the
1,
whole
3, and 4 make a triangle, and 2, 5, and 6, and then you can make a second
right. So in a
triangle to
way,
include
it's almost
7.
easier than boys lacrosse because in boys, with less numbers, somebody has to share in the triangle. With this, you could literally have two separate triangles. So when this passes down to back, she could rotate through, come up, and they maintain their triangle. In the same time, if this comes around and she gets it and she dodges the alley, you know, comes through. Now, just to understand that we could discuss the merit of the strategy, but legally wise, according to the rules, I've done nothing wrong, right?
Correct. Correct.
Right. So I could
Attackers
totally
can pretty much go anywhere with the exception of the goal circle.
you okay, the crease, right?
In
Um,
women's lacrosse, it's technically called a goal circle. So a goal circle crease, you can use that interchangeably, correct?
Excellent. Okay. So this was the first moment that you've just clarified with your one thing, because to me, that's a great strategy as we're always working to kind of maintain space with any of it. I don't care if it's soccer, basketball, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, or hockey. Your kind of first rule is space. So I have these two triangles um, here. So what else should I know? Because I know there's things of shooting space and not hitting the defender in the head, and not making sure you don't do that. But that's all the how to play stuff. But when I'm having the most fun part of coaching for you and I, of just kind of doing the X's and O's, um, so far so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything you want to add with this, or?
Before we even get into an offense, what I like to do is have each girl challenge in, touch the ball, pass around a couple times, and challenge in. And that really means literally, I want you to challenge into wherever your defender is and make some body contact, not charge her, but make some body contact, because that's the only way you're going to find the differences between your offense and their defense. And so we want to find the mismatches right away. So, for
Okay. So
example, you don't even have to put them in a circle yet. But let's say you did that and you found that number 5 is much faster than their number 2. We would try to always have number 5 um, as the ball carrier when number 2 is defending her, and then you can kind of make your offense from there. So I like to test the waters a little bit, because on the sidelines, you can't tell who's faster. Sometimes you can't tell who has better footwork. Only the girls on the field get that feeling, and they kind of can read it, and they get that sense. So I always like to try to test the mismatches before we even get into a motion offense to see what's going to work and what's not going to work.
okay, so just to go there, so if I understand correctly, so number 5, we want her to, as you put, test the waters. And
Mm-hmm.
once again, I'm just gonna put this in my brain because it's us talking, right? So number 5's test the waters. All the girls know she needs to go to the goal. So my immediate thought is create space. So what I
Mm-hmm.
would kind of look at is tell them to go into something a little more like this to kind of clear out space for her. One of the
You
ways, yeah.
go ahead. No,
Um,
no, go.
I would dodge personally, this is me personally, is, what I always like to do was a mumbo. It's a little old school, which in girls would look something like this. Now, this obviously would come when I'm confirmed. You said test the wars. Now we know when we're in the third
Right.
quarter, we need a goal, and we know that we got some superstar with the ball, right? So she's going to dodge. One's going to curl, either set a pick or just draw a defender, come out, curl up. And at the same time, she's coming up, and she's dodging downhill. Yes or no in girls lacrosse? Because my concern now is she's dodging, and this is where it gets confusing. The defender is there. Number 2 has to worry about that shooting rule, but I
Correct.
understand the responsibility is on number 4's defender or number 5's defender, correct? And this is where
Well,
refing gets super difficult for girls lacrosse. I mean, you should clarify. So I know I'm talking rules here because number 4 has to worry about a cutting player they're covering and also a talented dodger theoretically screeching down the alley ready to let it rip. And
sure.
then you have this rule of the girl with the ball has to make sure that there's not that the
Mhm.
symbolic triangle, in the
Right. And
right.
that's where I go back to testing the waters too, because it's also two's responsibility to shoot proper safely. It's not just on the defender. We want to I as a goalie and as a defender, I always get a little offended because I feel like this game is stacked against the defense. It's always in the offense
Totally
favor. But
is
number 2
100%.
is needs to be responsible. She needs to make sure that she has a clear path to goal. She needs to shoot the ball in the responsible manner to avoid that dangerous follow through. or the dangerous propel, meaning you're propelling the ball in a dangerous manner. 4 and 5 defenders need to be responsible that they're leading with their stick, and not just jumping out in front of number 2. And this is so number 2 should be coming down and looking to play the rules to your advantage. I would be looking to go to goal. Head is up. We're not looking down at our feet. Um, we have the stick, kind of close to our body as if we're winding up for that shot. Maybe we do a pump fake with our shoulder, a head nod, a hitch with something so that she can draw that shooting space, because you can have a lane at the 12, or if you're beyond the 12, you get that hash mark at the 8 meter. So it's two's responsibility as well to read, can number 5 get away? Can number 5 get away? Or would it be better to draw shooting space where we are slowing things down, we're burning time off the clock, I'm going to get a hash mark, I'm going to clear the whole area, and then I can look to 5. I can assist the pass to 5, and we can get a one-on-one that way. I don't even have to take the 8
So
meter shot. So
strategically, nothing changes for me. What
no,
does change
no,
is we have to teach a little more. This
right,
has to do no matter what we run, no matter what dodge it is, that number 2 has to be conscious of the defender, and number 4's defender has to be conscious of the approach she takes to defend the talented. And what
correct.
immediately comes to mind is this is all good and well when you get girls who know what they're doing. But you're talking about a beginner level, and you get a girl who this is her first sport. She's as unathletic as they come, and she doesn't know, the sideline from the,
Mhm.
from the 8 meter, from anything. And she's floating around cluelessly, of which I know I've coached her. Many coaches have coached that player who's their parents is like, let's try this sport for the first time. And you get some poor girl who's floating around in the middle, and you're screaming at her, take the best approach, and it's just kind
Right,
of, and she's just, my point is she's just begging to get walloped in the head,
right,
because she's,
right.
and so I don't know how that works for a number 2. She's going to the goal, and she sees some girls just floating around cluelessly, she has to be aware to kind of keep going and not just let it rip, because if she, God forbid, hits that girl with a shot, not only is it dangerous safety wise, but now it's a major penalty and a whole thing.
Correct. It's a whole thing. It's gonna 2 is gonna be out for 2 minutes. You're switching directions, and you kind of, so you always, and that's why I always say test the waters. Well, what am I testing? Well, if I'm challenging in the big, I know we're talking about third quarter, last 2 minutes of the game, trying to tie it up or get that 1 point up. But that's why, as a coach, I always stress, like, in the very beginning of the game, test the waters. If you're challenging it at a fast speed, does the defense make those adjustments? Do they not know what they're doing? Or are they going to give you the lane because they're like, well, I don't know what she's doing, I'm just going to get out of the way, and you have a great shot to goal? Or are they all clamoring for the ball, like my 7-year-old son's soccer team, and they're all like, oh, ball, shiny object, and they all go to it, and then we have 6 other open attackers to work to rely on. So that's why I always say, you know, test the waters in the very beginning so that we can understand what type of defense you're up against, whether you are a very new program or you're a very advanced program. So we don't
Right.
know who was sick that day. We don't know who was injured and maybe, playing defense instead of their normal offensive spot, things like that. So I always say challenge it. Anytime you get the ball, you have to be a threat. I think that's a good thing to remember. The ball is what scores. So as soon as you touch that ball, you need to challenge in and see what's available. And
Right.
whether that's a shot on goal is available, or whether you drew a double team and now we're going to dump it, a draw and dump, we're going to dump it to the girl who's now open. So 2's challenging in and 2's defender staying with her. And let's say 4's defender goes. Now we have 2 can pass to 4, and she's right on top of the 8 meter and has like a nice, open space to goal. So that's why I always say challenge in every time you get the ball, be a threat and exhaust your defender, because you don't know what you can play, or you don't know what you can create within that motion offense. That triangle might work, or that triangle might fall apart, and that's okay. Where's that slow break that we can find, that
Right.
secondary option?
So now, and defense is a whole nother conversation another day, which I assume has a little, from my
Yep.
understanding, has a few more complexities than the offense does in
Yep.
strategy, because you got to
It
be more
does.
conscious of
Mhm.
that 3 seconds. Whereas offense, you just X's and O's, do what you want. Okay, so now she sends it down to 6. And once again, I'm not so talking strategy here. I just want to see if this is
Mhm.
feasible. In girls lacrosse, which I believe it is, 5 comes across and sets a pick for 1 who comes across, totally okay, in
Absolutely.
sends a pass, shot,
Absolutely. Perfect.
goal. All right.
Perfect.
So this is
Totally legal, totally perfect.
and something
Love
somebody may even want to write down. It's a great idea.
right. And
um,
I'm gonna say, a lot of moving picks are legal in women's lacrosse.
well, that's a ringer
So
because in
the
boys
only
lacrosse,
thing
that's just
that
gotten
you
more
need to
strict.
worry about, and you can look this up in the USL book. It's now NFHS rules book publishes it, but you have to give time and space for the defender to change her positioning. So you can kind of slide with her as long as she turns around and can see you and adjust to that. So no blind picks. Like I couldn't run up and be directly behind you, like, and be body to body. That would be an illegal pick. I can stay if you're going to do a moving pick, you have to give them time and space for either a standing pick or a moving pick. So
Okay.
I know people coming from basketball, we get some basketball refs, they want to call. I'm like, no, 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 moving picks are legal. Unless that's changing for the 2025 season, but as of right now, it's legal. Always consult your rule book and your any rule changes for your specific state. Sometimes they adopt some specifics. So
Okay.
just
So
always double
right
check
down
those
the
picks. But they are legal, and that especially basketball players with their footwork, it really comes in handy to have them setting the picks.
cool. That's helpful. Good. So it's something definitely people to look further into. So I just wrote that on the board so people watching this, they see. Okay, so now next common boys strategy. We'll see how it works in girls. And what we're learning is, as I speak to you more, is almost everything works for girls. And I just think it's so important. I know I say this a lot, but I think it's so important that when people come from other sports, whether boys lacrosse or basketball, you have so much knowledge. Don't throw it out. So
Right.
much of it can apply. Like, don't think you're starting from scratch. And that's something I talk about all the time. So now this is a little trickier. So I have a great attackman from behind who could dodge and, put their defenseman on skates like no other. But we have to remember in girls, she doesn't have the same room to operate that she does in boys. Like in boys, behind the goal, there's a lot more space. So I'm guessing in girls, you would more tell her to start over here a little bit because starting directly at X like they could in boys is a little more um, challenging. She doesn't have that same space to run up. Do you say that's true or not? Or do you still
I would
let,
say there's actually a lot of space, I think, behind the cage.
but directly behind
But
it's
you know what? And directly behind, I don't really often have girls go directly behind because I think the goalies, I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to goalies here. I think they're getting bigger, faster, stronger, and they're finding the ability to pick off those passes quicker. So I always want to offset my ex players because number one, I think visibility, it's hard to see through a cage with if they have a black net, that's hard to see through. It's hard to see, don't forget pads, thigh, you still have to wear thigh pads at the high school level. So the goalies, I think women's goalies are always like dressed heavier into more equipment. And so I think it just cuts your visibility if you're directly behind. You can absolutely go behind. I like to have them be offset slightly because I think the visibility is better. But it's
okay.
whatever works for your team.
Okay. So, but the point is, whether it's you or you've seen other teams who do dodge straight from X successfully, like I said,
Yep,
strategic you have here, but it's not like the craziest idea.
it's that correct.
Okay. So she's coming up, right? And now I'm talking more just spacing.
Hmm.
I would tell personally, number 5, fill from behind, like start to fill. And number 3 kind of floats here. And then when she comes, if she needs help, she can roll back, set it to 5,
Right.
3 in the crease. Or if she's really a next level player, she could like hit 5 across crease, I
Hmm.
mean, but that's a tougher look. But, a talented player, a team that's more next level teams could do it. But
Hmm.
basically, I'm talking maintaining space. Once again, if somebody chooses this is perfectly okay. She sends it up to number 1, then she fills in, and then we resume whatever offensive strategy we want to do.
Mhm.
And I've yet to come across a scenario where I'm taking a concept that I'm used to that I can't do because of girls' rules. And that's kind of thing. Obviously, strategic on factoring extra player, but the basic concept, like this rotation in space, like
Mhm.
everything's applying because I know we said before, the difference comes in with the application of the shooter, the dodger, the picks, but just pure having a good time at the airport, planning out your X's and O's, like it's all kind of good to go. So is there any, not so much the dodge or the specifics of the individual player, but strategically X and O's that I can't do um, in girls lacrosse that I could do in basketball or boys lacrosse, Um,
Well, I think you can pretty much I think basketball and men's lacrosse translate very well to women's lacrosse. I legally, I mean, obviously there's like certain fouls and things like stick work wise, like certain checks that would be illegal, but play wise, it would translate very well. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time we chatted, but Cindy Timchall, who's at the Naval Academy, is a wonderful person to watch for her execution of a house triangle offense. She's a wonderful coach. She was at Maryland. She's at the Naval Academy now. I think if you want to understand the basics of a triangle or like a basic house offense, like I think she was the one who kind of coined the phrase house. And if it went to somebody else, please message me and I'll give the credit. But I think it was Cindy who kind of thought really kind of revolutionized the a good motion offense for women's lacrosse. So watch Maryland, watch Naval Academy. She's wonderful with, and just find the shapes and watch how they move.
okay. Now I know this is not, I wrote down for everybody to see on the board.
Yep, and
Um,
it's Tim Chal, T as in Thomas, I M as in Mary, CHAL. There you go.
there you go. Okay, so everybody can see that there. Put it on the board in bold. Now, I know this is not a real offense, but we're just going theoretically using
Yep.
extremes to make points. This is the one thing I think you couldn't do in girls lacrosse. Not that you would do it in boys either, Um, but having a lot of people, whether it's 6 people, 5 people in front of the goal,
Mm-hmm.
because of the problems with the shooting rule we discussed earlier, where the girls are conscious of the defenders, putting people in front of the goal where it's this many or this many or even three when somebody's coming downhill is a strategy that leads itself to complications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, for many reasons, as I said, not like a boy likes getting hit with a ball, but but in girls, there's actual consequences, penalties for it. Where boys, it's just like a big ouch, like what a prick threw the ball at
Right.
me, you
Right.
know. um, so this is one of those strategies where in girls lacrosse, if you're thinking of having people stay in front of the goal or cut through the goal, a lot of activity in front of the goal, you have to know your girls and know that, hey, if they're not that great at understanding, to be conscious of the defender of when and when not to shoot, you may not want to do this and may want to more use a more open strategy. Is that fair to say? Like
I
just
would
knowing
agree.
your girls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you have
Yep.
that girl where you've told her like 20 times, like, stop doing that, stop hitting the girl in the head, stop throwing the ball, stop
Right.
throwing the ball. It's like, okay, when whatever, Kelly's dodging, we're running the open set,
Right.
everybody, the Kobe Bryant offense of get out of the way.
Yes.
Get out.
Get out. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is something to be aware of. Now, is there a rule in girls lacrosse of having too many girls in front of the goal?
No, you could literally put you could run an offense from in there.
Like this, like what I just did.
Um, right. And I would say with since you're kind of catering to younger teams, that's where we see a lot of the fouls because we don't have the stick skills and we are gonna cause, and it's not even a purposeful foul, like maybe I'm just body unaware of how to hold a stick as I'm a new player, and a stick gets a girl in the chin, or when we go to pick up a dropped ball, we're popcorning it up and somebody gets hit in the chest with the ball. So I would, I think for younger teams, newer teams, it's a good idea to create as much space as possible because they have more room to, I think that's good all the time, but especially with younger kids or
Keep the
newer
crease
kids.
clean.
And
Essentially,
it's just, you give yourself a lot of space. If you make a mistake, no big deal. You can pick up the ground ball and kind of reset your offense. There's less pressure as if you're when you're spread out.
right, and obviously, I'm sure on the board a very extreme scenario,
Correct.
just to make
Correct.
the point. But the general
Yep.
idea of lots of activity in the crease, unfortunately, you're asking for trouble at the earlier stages. The earlier stages, it may make more sense to kind of, as you put, spread them out
Right.
and maybe have one girl in the crease here, who understands, like, get out of the way, or even better yet, just
Right.
kind of
Right.
clear out of the early. If you just want to play a game where the girls, you don't have to worry about the shooting problem, and we're talking entry level. I just want a flowing game, without the ref having to blow the whistle every 10 minutes. It just kind of this makes a little more sense.
Right. Right.
All right. Well, that was hugely helpful today, as always. It's our second one. Anything
Yeah.
you want to add? So I'm just talking strategy that people need to be aware of. And my takeaway from this is you're saying, don't worry about it. Have a blast coaching, enjoy the game. Like, you don't overthink it. There's not the restrictions that you think, and most of the restrictions have to do with the application of shooting, dodging, defending, but X and O's, which so many coaches love, as you and I do, have a blast, enjoy. Everything you
Absolutely.
enjoyed in boys lacrosse, you can enjoy in girls lacrosse, the same
Yep.
way. I know that was a problem for me. I wanted to enjoy coaching girls. But I immediately like, oh, what can I do? And if I'd spoken to you before and you were like, Joe, let it go. Everything you learn boys, just have at it. Do that. If there's a penalty, deal with it. But just embrace working with the girls and doing everything you love with the boys. You can enjoy here too. I wish if
Yep.
you had given me that speech, I would have had so much of a better time.
And I think relax too. You know, everybody's new at one point in time. So, and I think, refs, if you just ask, like, I don't understand why my kid keeps getting called on this. Can you tell me at halftime why? And we can fix it. And I remember my very first lacrosse game. You just don't know until you know. I remember I got called, I think every single penalty, and I got kicked out of the game because I had too many yellow cards and then I was like, oh, now I get it. It got me. I think at that time, I don't want to speak out of turn, but that was a long time ago. You could have like 2 greens, 2 yellows. I don't even know the card count I had at the end of the game. It was astronomical. And then I was like, I finally get it. So everyone can just relax as long as you get through the game. Um,
Right.
that's when you
Obviously, there's
start to
some
learn.
new things you gotta learn, but
Yep.
90% of it, if you're coming from coaching boys lacrosse, have confidence in
Yep.
yourself, enjoy, relax, and let the
Yep.
refs do their job. Trust the refs to, call certain things, and you just do the subbing, know your team, have the
Yep.
strategy. Defense is a little trickier, and hopefully you won't mind talking to me again. We'll talk
I would
about
love to
defense.
talk about defense.
Because defense, I think there is a little more that we need to discuss of can and can't do where there's some differences. And I don't want to get into it now, but I think we're alluding to time in the crease, approach to the defender, which may
Right.
affect your strategy. So there are
Right.
some things, unfortunate defense, that we'd have to kind of say, yeah, that worked in this sport, not in this one. Yeah, this kind of, that kind of
Right.
thing. But with that being
Absolutely.
said, thank you so much. You're the
You're
best.
welcome.
All right. I'll talk to you
Thank you,
soon.
everyone.